Welcome to the Abort Ignorance Montana Podcast. I'm Tanea, your host, and on today's episode, we are sharing a live event that we were a part of, a local forum at a pro-life event. We answered questions about where the pro-life movement is currently at, what can we do better, and how can others get involved. It's an engaging conversation to some difficult questions and some questions that I'm sure are burning inside of each of you. So before we get started, please make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast so that you're always notified of when new episodes come out. Make sure that you download episodes so you can listen anywhere on the go. And as always, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments about today's episode, please email us at abortignorancemt@gmail.com. We want you to be part of the conversation as well. Without further ado, here we go.
What first drew you into pro-life work, and how are you currently involved?
Thank you for having me. First drawn into pro-life work actually through an encounter that I had with the Lord. So in my early 20s, I didn't know what abortion was still. I kind of knew I probably wouldn't have one myself if I was in that situation, but I didn't know what it was. And God just met me at our young adults group one day and totally just wrecked my heart for the issue. And he at the same time revealed what abortion was. And at the same time, the main message that he revealed to me was that there's these children in heaven and they want us to tell their moms that they forgive them. And I tear up every time I say it because it's still so real. And so my heart broke for the women and the families that experienced this. And through that, I realized that I've never had an abortion, but I had my own level of grief to deal with those around me who had an abortion. And so from that, I went in, I think literally the next day, to Hope Pregnancy Ministries and talked to Michelle's team about volunteering because I knew I had to do something and I wanted to get involved. And they said, that's great if you want to volunteer, but we'd like to offer you a job. So I actually got to work for Michelle for a while, and that was first getting my feet wet. So from there, it's just evolved and morphed, and now what I'm doing is I have the podcast, Abort Ignorance Montana Podcast. I started Abort Ignorance Montana to help share information about what's going on in the culture as well as legislatively. It's very difficult to digest that information for ourselves sometimes, and so I was just trying to find a way to make it accessible for everyone. And so I started that with just blogs and a website, and then after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, my husband and I realized that there's no longer that same strong voice for the younger generations in Montana. So we felt a new level of responsibility to help be one part of that voice. And so I was pulling back from everything I was doing because I just had a baby, and the time he was 6 months old, God asked us to start a podcast. So that's what we're doing now, and we just work for grassroots advocacy as well as healing men, women, and families.
Considering your realm of pro-life work, what general misperceptions do you believe the public may have?
So I would say my realm of pro-life work is partially in grassroots advocacy and partially in the social media content creation world. And what I have found in both of those areas, especially in Montana, is that people they're equating a right to an abortion to be the same as or protected under their right to privacy. And so if you follow that thought process, then what those people are really doing is they're valuing their privacy more than they're valuing human dignity and more than they're valuing life. So for example, if there was a woman in our state and she wanted to kill her 2-year-old by way of lethal injection, which is a third trimester abortion, or by depriving her 2-year-old of nutrients, which is a first trimester abortion, or by dismembering that child, which is a second trimester abortion, we would all have a very big problem with that, even though that is a private decision that she is making in the privacy of her own home. We would not say that she has the right to kill that child because she has a right to privacy. And so then the question is, well, then who is it in the womb? What is it in the womb? And I would say most people nowadays, they will tell you it's a human being. So there's not a misperception there. But the debate now is around, well, is it a person? When is this human being a person? And so then we have to define personhood, which I know we've all been trying to do. And those that are debating this are saying, well, then we're all capable of rational thought, but you only become a person when you can exercise that rational thought. Along those lines, then if you have a 6-month-old, my baby is now a year, he was just shortly a 6-month-old shortly ago, they can't exercise their rational thought at that stage. When you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you can't exercise your rational thought. So if you follow this train of thought down to its logical end, you actually get to a point where we don't value anyone unless they can do something for us instead of just because they are. So by defining what a person is, which is a human being that is capable of rational thought and made in the image of God, that person, no matter their stage in development, is worthy of protection. And so that totally unravels the right to privacy misperception. And I think we need to do a lot of work in Montana to help unravel that particular misperception.
In what ways might the church need to grow or change in order to more fully reflect a consistent, life-affirming witness?
Truth without love is mean. Love without truth is meaningless. Yeah. I would echo a lot of what has been said. Something that's very practical that we could help educate the body of Christ on is that what are the church's political rights? So that phrase, separation of church and state, is not in the Constitution. That is a wrong interpretation of the rights. So that was placed in our Constitution, not with that exact wordage, even, so that the government couldn't control our freedom of religion, not so that the government could tell us what we can and can't say. So it was actually to protect the churches. So I think just knowing that, and then knowing on a practical level, how can churches be involved? They can actually say a lot more politically than what they currently believe. That takes a boldness, and there's risk and cost associated with that. But knowing that they are allowed to do almost anything besides publicly endorse a candidate would be really educational for the churches. Along with that, there's a phrase that one of my friends says that apathy is just surrendered authority. And so the apathy that I think Kristen mentioned that we do have as the body of Christ right now, it's easy to do, right? Like, these things are hard. There's spiritual warfare that goes on. I don't think any one of us would stand up here and say, I wanted to be a pro-life advocate when I was a little girl. Like, no thanks. I was hoping I didn't have to do anything, actually, in the pro-life movement. But it's worth it. And so just knowing that we have the authority as the body of Christ to take over this issue and to take back the narrative that our culture, our pro-choice, our pro-one choice culture is telling to young people. And along with that, educating our young people on marriage, sex, and family in that order, and that they're connected. And even just this simple, like, how does a male and a female's body work when you hit puberty? We need to be doing a curriculum. We need to have education about those in youth groups, in private Christian schools, in homeschool atmospheres, so that kids can know just biologically what's going on, and then also give value to marriage marriage and sex were never supposed to be separated from babies. It's actually all connected, and almost no one in our culture knows that anymore. I'm going a little bit long, but we mentioned the women sitting in the pews that have experienced abortion. 70% of abortions are from Christian women. 70%. So if you have I think it's actually 1 in 3 women that have had an abortion, and 70% of that 1 in 3 is a Christian, you can't sit there and tell me that there's not someone on your left or right that's experienced that. Yep. And then you spill that over into the men and families that are the ripple effect of those abortions, and everyone in your pew has experienced abortion in some way, whether they know it or not. And so we can't heal what we can't see. So like it's been said here, we need to expose, we need to talk about abortion and shine light on abortion, and that is love, because that's when women and men and families can actually come forward to heal. I don't like talking about this question in the sense of pastors, because I think that we do have to be really, really careful that they are the ones that have been given the authority to shepherd our souls. And so whether they're doing it right or not, they still deserve our respect. So I love that Michelle stopped and honored the pastor we have here. And I also want to just put that caveat in of, like, I don't think it's our job as the people sitting in the pews that aren't pastors to wrongly accuse or to criticize and tell our pastors how to do their job. But I do think we can and support them and help educate them.
So what kind of event could a bunch of different pro-life organizations that have different and varying focuses try to come together and host it together?
First thing that came to mind was some type, I don't know how it would work because there's so many different organizations, but some type of fundraiser or a community event maybe for families where we bring all of our supporters, because there are some staunch differences of approach that it could be interesting as far as how would you present, like what would your, not entertainment, but you'd have to be careful of what the subject matter was, I would think. But maybe something, families love free events to go to for their kids, so maybe something like that could be a good summer event. Or like I said, I don't know how the fundraising side would work, but some type of fundraiser that all of our supporters would come to. I don't know where the money would go or I don't know how that would work, but those are just some ideas I had on that question.
So when does CI 128 go into effect? And will they have to reprint the state constitution?
It already is. It's been a year. July. It's effective. The next legislative session that happens in January, every legislator that is there, whether they're pro-life or not, will have a constitution in their pocket that requires them to follow CI 128. However, I'm glad you asked, because I think we need to shine a positive light on some stuff that's happening politically. So yes, we have abortion without limits in our state, which is largely went through because of the misperception I talked about right to privacy versus right to abortion. And we also have a very corrupt judicial system. There's actually an article put out about the worst appeals court in the nation is Montana. And it's true. So the opportunities that we have, though, to what we can do in our state, so we've already passed a bill that protects pregnancy centers. I think it's still in effect. I don't think it's been enjoined yet. We also have already passed a bill that says boys in boys' bathrooms, girls in girls' bathrooms, so we're protecting our young people as far as boys are boys, girls are girls. And we can also continue to pass laws that on a national level, there's work being done to defund Planned Parenthood, stop the abortion pill. That's actually a very real possibility that we could do. We could stop the abortion pill, possibly. We could almost for sure stop it being mailed out, but there's an FDA study that's being done right now on the harmful effects of the abortion pill, finally. So stop the abortion pill. We could pass laws in our state to stop IVF before it comes here and becomes a big issue. If you have questions on IVF, please come talk to me. We are passing laws about informed consent for women. So our AG is actually, our Attorney General is going to be working on something, lawsuits and hopefully a bill that protects, that requires informed consent as well as a statute of limitations. So right now, if you've been harmed by abortion, you have 2 years to sue that abortion provider if you've been harmed in some way. We want to extend that to at least 10 years. So we'd have more, it would cost more to be an abortionist in our state. So there's lots of things that we can be doing, including electing officials that don't just have an R behind their name, but are truly pro-life and conservative. So there's hopeful things that we can do despite CI 128 being in effect.
Where do you see opportunities for collaboration that we might be missing?
The pro-life movement is so broad, and there's so much work to be done. I mean, you can see that, there should be 3 times as many people in this room. And so there's so much work to be done, and there's not as many workers to do it. And so we can all only focus on what we can focus on. So you have 4 very different realms represented up here in this panel. We each have our lane that we need to stay true to, and we can't afford to get focused off on a different lane because we just don't have the bandwidth. I think that's good and that's healthy, but I do think we need to at least be aware of what's going on in the other lanes. So for example, if there was someone in our valley that wanted to do a diaper campaign and that was like their one thing and their main focus, that is incredible and amazing. I don't have the bandwidth to do it. I support it 100%, but I don't have the ability to also focus on that. But if that person came to me and told me it was happening, I would put it on social media, I'd put it on the podcast, and I'd get the word out for them. And vice versa, if that person that's running this diaper campaign meets someone that says, what are the abortion laws in Montana? Like, where are we even at? Is it even legal? And that person running the campaign isn't sure, she could have a resource. Like she could give them a flyer that sends them to my podcast and they listen to the episode on where are abortion laws at in Montana. So I think we should at least be aware of what's going on and reaching across to the other people's lanes and know what's going on so we can support each other without getting pulled away from what our main focus is, because we do have to stay laser focused.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found the conversation engaging and educational. If you have any further questions about the pro-life movement or things that you want answered that maybe you would have asked if you were at this live forum, please email us at abortignorancemt@gmail.com. We'd love to answer them and to engage with you in conversation and help debunk any thoughts, questions, or misperceptions that you might also have. So please email us again, abortignorancemt@gmail.com. Make sure that you find us on socials, like our pages there so that you can see our content, get notified of future episodes. You can download episodes and also subscribe to the channel so that you always get notified of when new episodes are coming out. We look forward to engaging with you soon, and thanks for tuning in today.